Good evening, welcome to Waterford Graded School District Joint Number 1, Special School Board Meeting, November 20th, 2014. Who's taking minutes? Oh, you are. You're married today.
Why, yes, I am.
Great. Pledge of allegiance is done. Roll call of members. Voice roll call. Doug, you're here. Dawn.
Here.
Don.
Here.
And Dan is here, so all 4 members are here. Notification of postings, this has been posted at our buildings, and this has been a newspaper, isn't it? Community newspaper, any other source?
Website.
And the website, I forget that one each time. So we are well posted. All right, bring us on to brief discussion of interview process.
Board members, what I have for you this evening in your packets. First off, we have 4 candidates that we're interviewing tonight. Starting, the first candidate will be Mr. George McNair, followed by Mr. Dan Walker, followed by Mr. Grant Strobel, and then followed by Dan Bowser. The initial posting of the meeting indicated that they would stand up and give a personal statement to begin with, but Mr. Bowser won't be able to be here till a few minutes before his actual interview time tonight because of a previous commitment. So I shifted on the agenda of when they're going to give their personal statements. Okay. Secondly, the question bank is in your envelope, and those questions are based on the recommendations that were forwarded to me. Number 11 was added. I added that myself because I think it's important for the community to know that, and I also think it's important for you to know that. And then I believe question number 3 was in the original bank of questions that you had to choose from, and I also added that in because I think it's important just for public disclosure of that information as well. So that's where the questions are coming from. Also then, we'll talk about the ranking process when we get to that. The only other piece that I would need clarification on then is after Mr. McNair comes to the table, how will the question process begin? Are you asking the questions going round robin format? Is one of you asking all the questions? Do you want one of us to ask the questions? That's something we need to clarify.
Well, one question I would have is, do we have any more chairs? If we have 4 board member respective people up here, after they do their usual thing, but then you're going to be asking questions, are you going to do each?
You're interviewing them one by one.
Yes.
Right. So I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, you're asking after the fact questions, right?
No.
No, he needs the initial questions.
Should we each ask one question?
We each ask one. Do we have just one person
Yeah.
on the board?
Yeah, that's fine. So we just do it the same way each time. Put that in and do it this way,
Okay.
1 through 4, right?
That's fine.
5 through 8, and so on.
So that would be good.
Okay, I just have one question. Is everybody okay with the questions on here? Dawn, are you okay?
Yes.
Is there any others from Tom?
Yeah, ones I brought up were just time.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure everybody's got their questions on here. Doug, you have any?
Oh, I thought
Okay.
we were good.
All right. In
I
that
included
case-
all the questions that were requested.
Okay, great. So it looks like we're all set with questions.
The only other piece I would just add is just for board purposes, in case there is an extenuating circumstance that you would need to go into closed session, I don't think there would be. That was added there just to make sure that that was posted appropriately as well.
All right. Anything else?
Not at this point.
Okay. With that, then we'll just head right on down. He said we're starting with
Mr. George McNair.
Okay. Mr. McNair, you're up. And again, thanks for your patience. I know last time you were here and we're anticipating more outcome that evening and we had to reschedule till tonight. So thank you for being patient and coming back and spending your time.
Good evening. I would like to thank the board for inviting me here this evening and for this wonderful opportunity to serve our community as an interim member of the school board. I would also like to thank the members of the community that have come out this evening in order to support this very important process. And additionally, I would like to thank the other applicants for applying for this important community position, and I wish them good luck. My family and I settled here in Waterford in the June of 2000, and I've had 3 children attend both the high school and Waterford Graded School Districts.
Sorry, George, I don't want to interrupt you, but can you put that a little closer? Amplifies just a little more. Thank you.
My motivation in seeking this appointment is my belief that I can help the children, teachers, and the community here in Waterford District provide the very best learning environment possible. I plan on doing this through providing leadership and applying my near-decade experience in post-primary education. I've served in ever-increasing positions of leadership throughout my life, beginning in 1985, while serving in the United States Navy and retiring honorably in 2006 as a Chief Petty Officer. More recently, I continue to volunteer with the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts right here in Evergreen, which I have been active for the last 10 years. My post-primary education experience began in 1994 as an instructor at the Navy Electronic Technician School. I was certified in teaching multiple areas, and these courses included both classroom lecture and laboratory. My experience continued in 2000 and 2006, where I had positions in recruit training at Great Lakes, and additionally, training administration positions also at Great Lakes. In addition to my relevant education in the United States Navy, I have attended Southern Illinois University and studied in a Bachelor of Science degree program. This program, all the major classes I went through first, and then you earn your general education classes later. I currently have 9 gen ed classes that I need to complete, and I hope to complete them shortly. The advantage of this program is that your major is learned up front, so you can apply that in your life prior to completing your degree. Once again, I would like to thank the board and community for having myself and the other applicants here this evening. In closing, I believe the overall function of the board is to provide leadership and guidance to the administration, our schools, and the broader community. All the applicants this evening have diverse resumes and experiences, but when it comes to leadership, I believe that you will find that I have a vast advantage in applied experience. Thank you again for your service to our community, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you for your opening comments. First question, Doug.
Okay, what educational, occupational, and or personal experiences qualify would help you in your capacity as a board member?
I think as a board member, my leadership experience, and obviously being in the service, I was trained in leadership, and also as an instructor, I understand what it is to stand up in front of a class of students and actually teach them a specific. I worked in more of a vocational type environment where I taught advanced electronics, but I think those are the relevant things that would help me with making sure that we can provide the best possible environment for the children to learn here in Waterford.
Why do you want to be on the board?
Because I think that I can apply my life experiences here and really provide the best situation for the children. I know I have a lot of ideas that I want to bring forth to the board if I obviously could apply here this evening. I have a lot of good ideas. Some of them is from just watching the board meetings online. Monday are pretty busy nights, so I don't get a chance to get here because I got 2 children going in 2 different directions. But I have a lot of good ideas that I heard coming from these meetings that I would like to apply.
All right, next one. Are any of your immediate family members current employees or retirees of the Waterford Graded District?
No.
All right. What issues do you believe are currently a priority for the board?
The one issue that I just spoke about is the one thing I wanted to bring to the board is that a lot of people talk about having more teachers come to the meetings and speak to the board, but in my preparations to come here tonight and reading through all the board policies, I discovered in policy 155, which is school board communications between the board and staff, specifically says that all communication between the board and the staff have to be through the superintendent. So the one thing that I would plan on doing is up front is working with the chairperson of the policy and curriculum, which I believe is Dawn, about making, editing that and updating that to allow for, communication outside of that direct chain of command. I mean, it would have to be specific to say that, these issues could be done in an open session where every, other type of things would have to continue through that, the basic chain of command.
What is your educational philosophy?
My educational philosophy is people teach people. Okay? I, serving in my last position as in training administration, we were switching a lot of training to computer-based training. We were getting away from classroom instruction in the Navy, and we were going to CBT, where the kids were, I call them kids, but they were young men and women. They were, training on an internet-based training, and then there was be a facilitator available to help them. And my experience was all up in stand-up instruction, and I believe that the way you teach somebody is human to human, because a machine can't look you in the eye and see that you're totally confused. When I was teaching my class at 24, when I got done with a subject, I could look out there and see in their face just that one student that might be in the back that had that blank look on his face, where a machine just can't do that.
Some of this was covered in your opening statement, but what is your educational background? Anything else you want to add to that?
Know that I'm just a graduate of the Navy instructor training course, and secondary, I was a graduate of the Navy recruit training course, which was from 2000 and 2003. I trained recruits down here in Great Lakes. Most of that was yelling at them, but there was a lot of training involved.
It's probably a short one. How long have you lived in the district?
Since 2000, 14 years. I like your questions.
Mr. Random?
I think you did.
What do you believe are the district's biggest strengths and weaknesses?
Well, the biggest strength is the people. The people here, always have great teachers here in Waterford. My kids have always been, and they've gone out of their way, and specifically here, my children have gone to Evergreen. And Mr. Moltov has just gone out of his way, I believe, to make sure that the kids get everything they need. Especially, he was on some special education for a while, and they were always on top of the meetings and making sure the plan was being, implemented. So I believe it's got to be the people.
Why do you believe you would be a good representative of the community?
I volunteer in the community. Dan may remember, I started in this Cub Scout pack when he was his last year as Cub Master. And that was quite a few years ago now. And through volunteering in the community, through the 10 years I was active through boys for Cub Scout Pack 324, I volunteered straight up through in the last 3 years as a Cub Master. Now both boys are in Boy Scout Troop 324, where I'm an advisor and a committee member.
How do you go about the decision-making process? Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
We'll go for that one. You can take last
That's right.
one. Sorry.
Well, to make a proper decision, first you need to understand what the problem is. So once you understand the problem, then you need to implement a number of solutions. Now you take a look at these number of solutions, and you apply them against each other to see which is the solution. And sometimes it might be, you might have 4 choices. We can do it this way, this way, this way, or this way. But it might not be as simple as picking one of them. You might have to apply several of those solutions together to come with the proper solution to that problem.
If appointed this evening, would you plan to seek re-election in the upcoming spring election for a permanent seat on the board?
Currently, no. Monday nights are, as I explained earlier, very bad. I got one child that goes to saxophone lessons. He's an aspiring, very good saxophone player, so he has a really good professional teacher. And additionally, the other one is good in soccer, and he plays in a traveling, a traveling soccer club, and those practices are on Monday night at the same time. So currently, no, I would not seek election in the spring, but I am applying now because obviously there's no soccer during this time period, except he plays indoors in Sturtevant on Saturday mornings, but that shouldn't affect my service on the board.
Just to clarify something, and maybe you want to answer or not, but the board modifies the evening based on the board members, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a Monday evening. We shift around based on other schedules and things shift around, so. Okay, just wanted to bring that up.
I read in the policy, and it said that the meetings were generally on the Mondays.
Yeah, it is in the policy, but we can't shift. Thank you.
All right, anything else?
That's the last one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, you said the next one was Dan Walker?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Walker. Welcome.
Thank you. Move that back a little bit. Good evening. For those that do not know me, my name is Dan Walker. Much like George, I received instructions to prepare an opening statement. I'd first like to thank the board, I commend the board for opening this up to the public. I think as many of you are aware, the letter that I provided, I have previous board experience, having been elected, and then chosen by my colleagues on the board to serve as the president of the board. I think it's important opening this up to the community and not just appointing someone at large. So thank you for that. I'd also like to thank Bob Castor for his years of service, not only to the school but to the community. And I wish him a quick and speedy recovery from his recent health challenges. I also want to comment on, you don't have an easy job. And I share that from personal experience. When I walked in this evening and met George, I shared with him that spent a lot of hours in this cafeteria. Spent a lot of hours in this building. So I have insight into what is required in being a member of the board. I feel that I bring professional and personal experiences, many of them gained from living abroad for a period of time. And I feel that I can leverage that learning and provide the board with global insight, which I feel is very important today in our global economy. And with that, I'll field your questions.
Could you just move the microphone a little bit closer?
Sure.
Thanks.
Take it, maybe tilt it down here a bit. The very
Okay?
unidirectional.
How's that? Better?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Number one, what educational, occupational, and personal experiences would help you in your capacity as a board member?
Well, I think, as I shared a recent global experience that I had, I was asked by my company to move to the country of Slovakia, which at that time had just come out of, they were at their 20-year reunion after 45 years of communist rule. I was tasked with setting up a global IT support team based primarily on hiring Slovak citizens. I had 7 months to hire 117 people, as well as prepare a facility which was cement floors and cement ceilings. It was extremely challenging. I feel, Doug, that being organized, being diligent, paying attention to details is something that has helped me. Overall leadership qualities, I've had a number of leadership roles, both professionally through my career, and then again, as I shared before, in a personal life, being a previous member of the Waterford Graded School Board.
Why do you want to be on the board?
I feel it's a very important component of the community. And I also feel very strongly that the board's number one responsibility is student achievement. Secondarily, setting policy. And third, allowing the administrative staff to manage those policies, hand those policies out, and more importantly, let the teachers teach. Let the experts do what the experts do.
Thank you.
Are any of your immediate family members current employees or retirees of the Waterford Graded School District?
No.
What issues do you believe are currently a priority for the board?
It's a good question, Tom. We look at challenges around Act 10 legislation. I think if asked to prioritize it, overall district morale and what's truly at the root cause of either perceived correctly or ill-perceived morale issues in this district. I think it's very important to note, I checked the student achievement ratings, the most recent ones. Waterford Graded School is very good. And I feel it's also important, again, going back to previous board experience, we need to celebrate things like that. The horn needs to be blown loud and clear. Because at the end of the day, that's what all of our taxpayer dollars are going to. Preparing these students to move the next level and ultimately into the world.
Thank you.
What is your educational philosophy?
Very much like George. People teach people. My background, I have an interesting background. And perhaps to jump ahead to a question about education. I hold an associate's degree in mortuary science. I was a licensed funeral director in Walmer. I practiced, when I first moved to Waterford here 27 years ago, with the Mealy family. Prior to that, I had worked in Chicago and in Milwaukee. I think there's some parallels there in that you deal with people face to face. And I feel very strongly, Doug, from an educational philosophy, technology is good. Technology is required today, in today's marketplace. But it's not the end-all be-all to educating not only young individuals, but adult individuals as well.
Touched on it a little bit, but what is your educational background?
Well, as I shared, I spent 7 years after college working in funeral homes in Chicago and Milwaukee. I made a change in the early 80s and jumped into this crazy IT field. Felt timing was good. It was the advent of the first home computers, and I essentially parlayed that into a long-term career. I ran my own business for a short while, a consulting business. I worked for a number of different consultants in the Milwaukee area, and then have been with my current employer, Johnson Controls, for 18 years in one capacity or another in information technology.
You touched on mine a little bit too, how long you've lived in the district, and I heard 27 years.
That is correct, yes.
What do you believe are the district's biggest strengths and weaknesses?
Being one of 10 union districts, the biggest strength, I think, is the people and the members. Feeding into the Waterford Union High School, along with the other feeder districts, I'm confident that there are synergies there that can be leveraged. I don't know that collaboratively a lot has been done to follow those. Biggest weakness, I really can't answer that. I don't know that there is an overall weakness.
Thank you.
Why do you believe you would be a good representative of the community?
Long-standing ties in the community, as well as, again, I go back to previous board experience. It was an amazing experience, and met a lot of wonderful people, served on the board with a lot of wonderful people. If many of you remember back at that time, it was when the 2 new schools were built. That allowed me, Doug, to really meet a huge number of people in this community. Because part of the challenge with that was evangelizing that. And for lack of a better word, selling it. And presenting, I mean, not only the village of Waterford, but the town of Waterford, Racine County. And I think my wife and I have gotten to know a lot of fantastic people here in this community. And for us, it's the longest place we've ever been for, one extended period.
How do you go about the decision-making process?
Well, collecting all the data that I can. And that's not to be conceived as analysis paralysis, but it's capturing succinct, clear data around what the issue is, but it's also collaborating with individuals and seeking out other opinions and other insight. Then bringing that together, Dawn, and also weighing in personal experiences. I would say I use that to drive my decision-making process.
And last one, if appointed this evening, would you plan to seek re-election in the upcoming spring election for a permanent seat on the board?
Right now, Dan, I'm undecided. But if we were all betting people, I'd bet on it.
Great. Undecided is at least halfway there.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, did you say Grant was next or Dan?
Grant.
Grant. All right. Grant Strobel. Welcome.
Thank you. Is that right there? Can you hear it?
Yep.
It's more, I think, back there, if they could hear it.
Is that okay? First of all, thank you for this opportunity tonight. Just a little bit about myself. I actually grew up in Waterford, lived here until the age of 10. Attended elementary school when it was still downtown there. Was it? I don't remember what the old name of that school was, but that's what it was. Yep, Bartlett High School. At that age, we moved one community over to Wanego. And after that, kind of continued on, ended up going to UW-Whitewater, where I earned my degree in elementary education. Right after that, I continued on to UW-Madison to earn my degree in educational administration. And since then, I've been employed with Lake Geneva Schools, where I started with an internship there in a first grade classroom. Was hired right after that to continue on in fourth grade. Taught fourth grade for 4 years, and then moved over to the middle school 12 years ago, where I've been in my current position as a tech ed STEM educator. So it's kind of my personal background there. I've been asked by people why I want to do this. I have 2 children that attend the graded schools right now, and it's really for them and for all the other kids and families that live in this town. I think we've got a great thing going right now, but I think there's always room for improvement. And I want to bring my expertise of the skills that I've earned in my own classroom and the skills that I've used to work with my administrators to share those with the board here to make this even a better place.
Okay, first off, what educational, occupational, and/or personal experiences would help you in your capacity as a board member? Which you touched on a little.
I touched a little bit upon that. I can go a little bit more into depth. As a tech ed STEM educator right now, one of the biggest things I'm working on, that's just an ever-changing field, the whole trying to get kids more involved in kind of an engineering mindset. I'm always trying to improve upon my teaching in that area. Just in the next couple weeks here, I'll be attending a couple conferences on the use of 3D printers in the classroom, which is kind of a new trend. Attending some other conferences about just using general technology in the classroom a week after that. So I'm always trying to improve upon what I'm doing, and again, I can bring some of that here. Some of the other things, the educator effectiveness. I've been part of that program now for 3 years. 3 years ago, I was asked by my administrators if I would become part of that pilot team for the district, where I've been evaluated under that the last 2 years, and then we'll meet with CESA 6 a couple times each year to give feedback. In addition to that, my administrators last year asked me to actually go through all the actual training for educator effectiveness, so I kind of saw what it was like for the administrator to do some of that. So I've received all of that training all the way through the calibration. I haven't been calibrated, but I've done all that training. And then this year, I've actually we've started a mentor program for our teachers as well to kind of guide us through that whole jungle of educator effectiveness. It's a massive change with what's going on. I think there's some great things there. I think it has good intentions. It's just there's a lot there to grasp. And I think I've got a pretty good hold on that right now. It's ever changing. As soon as we get one document, things change. But I'm constantly working on it with our administrators. So.
You also touched on the second question a
Okay.
little bit, but why do you want to be on the board?
I think it really goes back to the kids. That's first and foremost, that is the goal of schools. It's to educate our children to the best that we can. And for my own children, for all the other kids here, I think it's just to continue improving upon that. I think we do a great job here already, but I think there's things that we can always add, improve, and I think with my insight of actually being in the classroom, it just gives another perspective on everything.
Next one, are any of your immediate family members current employees or retirees of the Waterford Graded School District?
Actually, that you ask it that way, I've got 2 of them. My wife is employed here right now. She's been here for the last 4 years as a library aide. And if you want retired, actually my father was the principal at Fox River many, many years ago. So going way back.
Thank you.
What issues do you believe are currently a priority for the board?
I think the biggest priority right now is just teacher retention and a lot of just the teacher issues with attending board meetings, watching them online. That's always a topic. And I think we've got to keep great teachers. I mean, first and foremost, they've got to stay here. We've got great people. We've got to keep them. We can't have the turnover that we have right now.
What is your educational philosophy?
My educational philosophy is simple, that all students are there to learn. No matter where they come in, our goal as teachers and educators is to get them to the next level. I don't care if they're the lowest student. In my own classroom, I get kids from time to time that don't speak any English at all. We still have to teach them. We get students that are incredibly high. In a middle school, we get kids performing easily at the high school level. We still have to move them beyond that. It's not just teaching to the middle, but it's moving every child up, preparing them for the next level. So if we're here, preparing them for the high school and then beyond.
This was also someone in your opening, but what is your educational background? If there's anything else you wanted to add?
I think, as a teacher, it kind of wraps it up there. Like I said, I did an internship in first grade, I've taught fourth grade, and now I've got 6th, 7th, and 8th grade every day where I've been in the last 12 years, so.
All right, next one, easy one. How long have you lived in the district?
We moved here in 2001.
What do you believe are the district's biggest strengths and weaknesses?
Biggest strengths, I would say, are the teachers. I mean, having kids here, it is unbelievable to see, how great the teachers are here, the dedication. Not uncommon to drive by here on the weekend and there's teachers here. I mean, they want what's best for kids. And again, we've got to keep those people. Weaknesses right now kind of goes along the same things. We've got some, I think, morale issues, communication issues, things like that will definitely affect the other side of it.
Why do you believe you would be a good representative of the community?
I've done some work in the community. Actually, I've been involved in the robotics program here, so I've worked with some local kids here and everything. I'm not involved with it anymore, but the last 3 years I've done the Lego competitions and then also I've taught some summer classes, so I've got a lot of ties with community members here, families. I'm out and about. It's just, I've been here for a while and know different people.
How do you go about the decision-making process?
My personality is one where I kind of gather all information. I'm not overpowering. I like to look at things from lots of different points of view. And I think we've got a pretty unique board right now where we have some different points of view, and I'm just another angle for things to come at from. Once you can kind of look at it from all angles, take a little step back and see what's the best direction. Maybe taking one idea or combining several.
And last one, if appointed this evening, would you plan to seek re-election in the upcoming spring election for a permanent seat on the board?
Yes.
Okay, that would conclude that. Thank you very much for your input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Dan Bowser. And again, Dan, thanks for your patience waiting. I know you were here previously and we rescheduled for this evening, so thank you for spending your time.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, opening statement if you have any.
As you know, I've run for the board the past 2 years. I'm very interested in education and doing what we can for our kids, for their future and for our future. I think it's very important, the things that we put together for them so that they can succeed in the world that's quickly changing. Technology is taking over just about everything in our world, and it's great that we're allowing them access to technology, but I think there's more things we can do.
First question, what educational, occupational, and/or personal experiences would help you in your capacity as a board member?
A few different things. One, I've worked in industry. I've worked in industry for a number of years, led a number of projects. I'm very familiar with that world and the technology needs. I'm an engineer by background. Also, I've been getting increasingly involved in education. I've done some things with Gateway. I'm currently doing some online teaching for them. Also worked with them in helping set up their student business incubation program. So I've been very involved in the entrepreneurial community in southeast Wisconsin. Everyone is starting to look more and more for entrepreneurship and innovation. Everyone in industry is looking for that. How do we cultivate that out of our youth? How do we get them the kinds of experiences that will help them to be successful?
Why do you want to be on the board?
I think my background and experiences help me bring a little different perspective, and I think that I can help do a couple different things. One, I can bring that perspective to help hopefully lead us in the right direction for where we need to go with our education for our kids, as well as I'm objective. You know, I look at things and try to make the right decision for all the players. You know, obviously our kids are the most important. There are other stakeholders also, and I try to take all those into account.
Are any of your immediate family members current employees or retirees of the Waterford Graded School District?
No.
What issues do you believe are currently a priority for the board?
Well, there are a few different items. I mean, one big item right now is definitely the unrest that we have in the community, if you will. I think that's an element that we've seen that there's a lot of passion in this community, which tells me there's a lot of interest. It's about bringing all that passion and directing it in the right direction so that we're all working together. I think that's a key piece. Because we don't educate kids as just, you know, that doesn't just happen in the classroom. It takes a community to raise kids. You know, that means engaging the parents. That means engaging teachers in a number of different ways, and the greater community, so that we provide that educational experience that we all want for our kids.
Thanks.
What is your educational philosophy?
I believe it's important to make sure that every kid succeeds, and that every kid has the opportunity to be the best that they can be. The one thing, or one of the big things, I guess, that has pushed me to seek out this role and to do what I can in education is that I've seen a lot of kids, intelligent kids, that have been turned off by the kinds of things where they could succeed and have tremendous impact on the world. So I guess that's the item for me that is probably the biggest. We need to make sure that they're not slipping through the cracks. I've seen, again, a lot of kids who are very, very intelligent, and some of them are difficult to deal with in the classroom. I deal with that in some cases in some of the elements that I'm involved in. You know, whether it's scouting or whether it's first level, I deal with a lot of kids. And there are some that are challenging, but I'll tell you what, many of those are the ones that go on to do wonderful things in the world. We can't just medicate them or try to get them to, you know, sit still in the classroom. We need to find ways to engage them. Because again, they can become our leaders in the classroom also. That's some of what I've seen out of some of the kids I work with in First Lego League, is that they're starting to take some leadership roles in the classroom. We need that mentorship, especially in technology.
What is your educational background?
Hold on one second. A little bit of talking here before this. Like I mentioned, I'm an engineer by background, mechanical engineer. And then I went back to school, picked up my MBA. I'm continuing to learn all the time. I'm doing a number of online courses. I teach online. But I'm also pushing myself to learn more and more things, pushing myself to learn computer programming. Because, you know, I feel that that is something that we need to open up for all kids. That is the language of the world going forward. I mean, what does not rely on some kind of computer technology? Show me a field. Almost all of them require something there. So I'm continually learning, and I think that's important. I think that's an important piece for our kids, is that we develop lifelong learners. There's so much information nowadays that's available online. It's more important that they want to learn, that they find the things that they're passionate about, that they're interested in, and that they see can make a difference in the world. and then help them with that journey.
Simple one. How long have you lived in the district?
Well, my kids are now in high school, and we've been here since from when they were in kindergarten, so a little over 10 years. So,
What do you believe are the district's biggest strengths and weaknesses?
well, strengths, I mean, we came here like many others because the education system is pretty good. That was definitely a factor for us in moving here. You know, we did look at that. I think we're still strong in that area. I mean, we have good test scores. We've got a lot of things going for us in those areas. The challenge is that looking at a global scale, we're not necessarily keeping pace. We compare ourselves to our peers, and I don't mean just the test scores. The test scores don't show everything. In fact, there are some studies out there that show that the countries that have the highest test scores also have the lowest interest in going into some of those areas, the STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, math, and that's where opportunities are. So I guess, you know, from a strength perspective, yes, we're pretty good compared to our peers, but from a weakness perspective, we can't rest on that. Really, in order for our kids to compete in a global landscape, and they're going to. I've done a number of things on a global basis, whether it's working with programmers in India, whether it's working with, I've got a student right now that I'm mentoring at Marquette, who's from China. We had a student come live with us for a while through the exchange program from Germany. So I think it's more important to have a number of those kinds of elements also, because our kids are going to be on a global basis, and we've got some real challenges there.
Thanks.
Why do you believe you would be a good representative of the community?
I'm involved in a lot of things in the community, as I'm sure you're aware. I mean, speaking some things here, I'm the current scoutmaster of one of the local troops, but I engage with all the other ones also. I've got friends on all of those. I do the first LEGO League and robotics. I've done that for 4 years now. I've done things with the Waterford Chamber. I helped put together a learning activity, a business builder event with the Chamber, help them see a little bit of the opportunity and the need for educating the businesses in the community a little bit more on how to do their business better. We brought in resources like RCEDC, Racine County Economic Development Corporation, SCORE, WIBIC, a number of resources that many of them are free and have wonderful resources or wonderful things available that we're not necessarily taking advantage of. So I still have really good ties with the Chamber, and I'm involved in a lot of different things in my church as well.
How do you go about the decision-making process?
One sec. I apologize, and this is when it gets around to you again. I'm very big on trying to be as objective as I can be and gather the information. Yes, I'm analytical, but at the same time, I try to take the human element into account. And that's some of what has made me successful as an engineer and in other roles. Obviously not perfect, but again, I try to listen. I try to see what others, a challenge that we face, and it's in this whole country, is that we're becoming very polarized. And with media the way it is, it's very easy to tune out other opinions. So one challenge, and this is for all of us, really, is how do we listen to that other viewpoint? Because if we don't, then we risk alienating it. And what I found time and time again is if we can at least listen to what they have to say and show that we're taking into consideration their viewpoint, very much they will become advocates.
And last one, if appointed this evening, would you plan to seek re-election in the upcoming spring election for a permanent seat on the school board?
Each year it's a difficult decision, and it depends on what else is going on in my life. I would say most likely, but I won't say definitive yes or no, because there are a number of other things that I'm involved in, and it depends on what takes off. As I had mentioned in there, I'm involved in a group that is trying to bring together all the industry partners in southeast Wisconsin, as well as the education community, the entrepreneurial community, in a way that's never been done before, on a scale that just isn't being done. Open source is winning. In other words, where we have an open environment where people collaborate in today's world is where opportunities happen. That's how we, as in southeast Wisconsin, are going to be successful. We need the big players, we need the medium-sized players, and the small and the entrepreneurial. And that's something that we have elements of it, but it's not all working as well as it
Okay, great. I think that concludes that portion of it. Thank you very much for your input.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that would bring us on to, I see no reasoning to go into closed session on this here, so we'll skip right over that, right?
I'm fine with that.
Therefore, on to rank candidates, and the only thing I'm seeing on here, Chris, is discussion after that. You just have rank candidates. Okay. I mean, I would assume you have a ranking to discuss the rank.
Right.
Or decisions. Okay. All right, so we should have pieces of paper up there. Okay.
Inside your packet, there was a little set of papers. It needed stuck down to the bottom of the envelope. Okay. So what you're going to do, board members, is put your name on the slip of paper, and then rank order the 4 people that you just interviewed, and then those people will be given points. And it's kind of like a golf game tonight, if you will, from the standpoint. The individuals with the fewest amount of points would move on to the next letter of ranking. So the process right now is to narrow it down from 4 people to 3. Okay?
Pass those down, please, that okay?
Right on the first slip of paper then, the rank order is Grant Strobel, Dan Walker, Dan Bowser, George McNair. So in that particular case, Grant would get 1 point, Dan gets 2, Dan Walker gets 2, Dan Bowser gets 3, George McNair gets 4. On the second ballot, you have Grant Strobel getting 1 point, Dan Walker getting 2, Dan Bowser getting 3, George McNair getting 4.
I just have a question we can clarify.
Yes.
Are you saying that you're going to give the person with the least number of points is the one?
The one with the most points would be eliminated.
Gotcha.
Okay.
These points move on.
Gotcha, okay.
All right, the next ballot, We have Grant Strobel, Dan Bowser, Dan Walker, and George McNair. Then the last ballot, we have Dan Walker, George McNair, Dan Bowser, and Grant Strobel. All right, so the summation then from the first round of balloting, Grant Strobel had 7 points, Dan Walker 8, Dan Bowser 11, and George McNair 14. So going on to the next round, then you should have a second ballot at your seats. The 3 people that you would now rank, we have Grant, Dan Walker, and Dan Bowser. All right, in the second round of ranking candidates, Grant Strobel, Dan Walker, Dan Bowser. Second ballot, Grant Strobel, Dan Walker, Dan Bowser. Third ballot, Dan Walker, George McNair, Dan Bowser. Right, so. And then the fourth ballot, Grant Strobel, Dan Bowser, Dan Walker. Grant Strobel, Dan Bowser, Dan Walker. All right, for the final two ballot, for the final ballot now, we're moving on to number 5 on the agenda. We've got Grant Strobel with 3 points, Dan Walker with 8, and Dan Bowser with 10. So now, board members, you would be voting for Grant or Dan Walker. First ballot that was submitted, we have Grant Strobel first, and then Dan Walker second. The second ballot, Dan Walker first, Grant Strobel second. The third ballot, Grant Strobel first, Dan Walker second. And then the fourth ballot is Grant Strobel first and Dan Walker second. The final score then, Grant had 5 points for the final ballot, with Dan Walker having 7. At this point then, the board would, based on its vote, or excuse me, based on the ranking and the voting that took place, would take the next step and appoint that individual.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Grant Strobel as the board member.
I'll second that.
Yeah, first by Doug, second by Dawn. Discussion.
want to thank all the candidates for applying and coming tonight to interview with us.
Absolutely. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. It wasn't an easy job.
Any other discussion? I'll just give my little bit of input. Like I said before, I believe that having an existing board member would be a much better benefit, or a previous board member, for somebody to come on for a short-term period until a new election takes place. So with that, we'll go. Unless anybody else has discussion? Okay, all in favor of Grant being the new board member, signify by aye. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with Doug.
Aye.
Doug says aye. Dawn?
Aye.
Dawn says aye. Tom?
Aye.
Tom says aye, and Dan says nay. It'll be a 3-1. And then that leads us to appointing new board member.
We just did that.
Physically, you do take, oath of office, okay. Administer oath of office.
The clerk, Judge Schwartz, has the information. I guess I had to do it. So Grant, if you could come forward, please.
Oh, you got all arrows for me to follow here. I, Grant Strobel, have been elected or appointed to the office of Waterford Graded School District, Joint Number 1 School Board.
I, Grant Strobel, have been elected or appointed to the office of Waterford Graded School District Joint 1 School Board.
Okay. Swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
Swear I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God.
of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations.
You got anything?
What I was going to say is the board members then on Monday night will have a board organization vote as far as the committee appointments and
Yep.
officers.
Right.
Okay.
And I'd just like, again, like Dawn was saying before, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, especially the board member perspectives, for giving their input and their showing what they could bring. I am very glad to see community members come out at least wanting to be on the school board. For a lot of years, it was very difficult to find anybody that would want to be on the school board. Dan can attest to that. There's years you're begging, somebody please go vote for the school board. So it's glad to see community members involved enough that they can come out and at least be engaged in it. And I would be happy to have any of the prospective candidates tonight run for office and be on the school board. They all have great insight into what will make this a positive environment and a great community. So thank you for coming out.
Yes, thank you very much.
Any more? All right, with that, motion to adjourn.
Awesome.
First by Dawn, second by Doug, I guess. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
There we go.